Cole Harding had always been a man who moved like the wind, quiet, steady, and without any sign of where he might go next. People in different towns knew him only as the tall cowboy with calm eyes and a steady voice, someone who worked hard, kept his word, and never caused trouble. He drifted from one ranch to another, following the seasons, sometimes staying a month, sometimes only a week. No one ever asked him why he traveled so much, and he never offered an explanation. It was simply who he was. On most days, he rode with only his horse, a loyal brown mare named Juniper. She understood him better than most people did. Cole rarely talked, but she always seemed to know what he wanted. When he leaned forward a little, she sped up. When he sighed, she slowed down, almost as if she sensed a change in his thoughts. Their bond was quiet but strong, built over years of shared journeys under the open sky. That afternoon, the sun hung high above the wide plains, warm but not harsh. The sky stretched endlessly, a perfect blue that made everything below look peaceful. It was the kind of day Cole enjoyed, calm, open, and without any demands from the world. He guided Juniper along a narrow path close to the border of Apache land, a region he respected deeply. He had ridden through many parts of the Southwest, but this place always felt different. It carried history in its soil and stories in its wind. Cole never crossed too far into it, not out of fear, but out of respect. He believed that a man should always know where he had permission to step and where he did not. He planned to reach the next small settlement by nightfall, where he would rest for a few days before deciding whether to take up work or keep moving. Life made sense to him this way, simple, steady, without ties that might weigh him down. He liked people well enough, but he had learned that being too close to others often led to complications he was not ready for. Out here, with only Juniper and the silent land around him, he felt free. As he rode, the wind carried familiar scents. Warm earth, distant pine, and the faint hint of rain somewhere far off. Cole closed his eyes for a moment, letting the air brush against his face. These small moments were what he treasured most. Quiet, peaceful, honest. The world did not pretend out here, and neither did he. But then something changed. Juniper slowed on her own, lowering her head slightly. Cole opened his eyes and straightened in the saddle. She only behaved like that when she sensed something unusual. Her ears flicked forward, listening. Cole tightened the reins gently and looked around. At first glance, everything seemed normal. The soft hills, the tall grasses waving in the wind, the line of distant trees. But as he scanned the ground, his trained eyes noticed something. Tracks. They were faint but fresh, pressed lightly into the dusty soil. Cole dismounted to look closer. The tracks were smaller than a man's boot, but deeper than a child's. Someone had passed through recently and in a hurry. Next to those footprints, he noticed markings from an animal. Not the kind that traveled peacefully. He couldn't be sure yet, but something about the arrangement of prints made him uneasy. He stood slowly and brushed dirt off his hands. Juniper gave a small snort, nudging his shoulder as if asking what he had found. Cole didn't answer right away. He placed a hand on her neck to calm her, though she wasn't truly frightened, just alert. He glanced toward the west, where the trail bent near a rocky ridge. The air felt different now, no longer calm and warm, but tense in a quiet, subtle way. It reminded Cole of the moments before a heavy storm, still uneasy, filled with something unsaid. He mounted Juniper again and nudged her forward. He didn't plan to follow the prints long, only far enough to be sure that no one was in danger. It wasn't in his nature to ignore signs like these. Even if he lived quietly, he wasn't the type of man to look the other way if someone needed help. The path became narrower as it wound between the ridge and a cluster of tall shrubs. The shadows grew longer even though the sun was still high. Cole scanned the surroundings carefully, slowing Juniper's pace. He didn't see anything unusual at first, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was ahead, something he needed to understand. As he moved deeper into the area, the breeze carried a faint sound. At first it was so light, he thought he imagined it. Then it came again, just a little clearer. It wasn't the cry of an animal or the rustle of leaves. It sounded human, but small and strained. Cole stopped Juniper and listened closely. There it was again, a soft, distant cry, almost like someone calling for help, but too weak to form real words. Cole felt a shift inside him. He didn't know who it was or what had happened, but he knew that voice belonged to someone who was scared. He had heard that sound before in his life, long ago, in situations he didn't want to relive. He had promised himself that whenever he heard it again, he would not ignore it. He guided Juniper carefully toward the sound. Each step felt slower, heavier with anticipation. The trail dipped slightly, leading into a shallow canyon. The rocks around him grew taller and the path became tighter. The cry came again, a little louder this time, and Cole's heart picked up its pace. Whoever it was, they were not far. He moved forward until he reached a point where the trail opened into a small clearing. He expected to see someone immediately, but there was no one in sight. The clearing was empty, with only a few scattered stones and a large fallen tree trunk. But Cole noticed something else. More prints on the ground, deeper now, more hurried. They led toward the far end of the clearing and disappeared around a bend. Cole tightened his grip on the reins. His calm nature didn't change, but his focus sharpened. He didn't know what he would find, but he knew one thing for certain. Someone out there needed help, and he could not turn away. As he prepared to continue, a quiet thought passed through his mind. He had planned a peaceful journey today, just another quiet ride across familiar land. He had expected nothing more from the day than a long stretch of sunlight and an open trail. But life had a way of changing course without warning, pulling him into moments he never saw coming. He looked down at the prints one more time, then forward again. Juniper shifted beneath him, ready to move. Cole nodded slowly, almost as if answering a silent question the land itself had asked him. Whatever waited ahead, he knew his path had changed, and he followed it without hesitation, not yet knowing that a single choice made in the fading light would tie his life to someone else's in a way he had never imagined. Cole guided Juniper slowly around the bend, keeping her steps quiet. The sound he had heard earlier came again, soft, frightened, and fading quickly, as if the person making it was losing strength. The canyon walls rose higher on both sides, shaping the path into a narrow corridor where echoes carried strangely. Even the smallest sound felt louder here, sharper, more urgent. Juniper's ears flicked forward and then sideways. Cole could tell she was sensing movement somewhere ahead, something restless. He kept one hand close to her neck, steadying her. She trusted him completely, but she was no fool. She could feel danger in the air just as clearly as he could. As they entered a wider part of the canyon, the wind shifted. It brought with it a mix of scents, dust, dry grass, and something else. Something animal, wild, hungry. Cole felt a quiet tension settle in his chest. He didn't want to assume the worst, but he knew the land well enough to recognize the signs. Animals passed through these canyons often, some harmless, others not. Juniper gave a low, uneasy sound, and Cole's grip tightened slightly on the reins. He whispered, "Easy, girl," though his own pulse had begun to beat a little faster. He scanned the landscape carefully. The canyon floor was scattered with stones and patches of dry shrubs. The cliffs above cast long shadows that seemed to move even when nothing else did. Cole's eyes followed the tracks again, footprints that belonged to the same small figure he had been following. But next to those prints were more paw marks, spaced close together, circling in different directions. He recognized them immediately. Wolves. Not many, but enough. Cole didn't feel fear exactly. He had grown up around wildlife and knew their behavior. Wolves were intelligent and careful. They didn't attack unless desperate or threatened. Yet the urgency of the prince told him they were hungry and had been chasing something, or someone. He nudged Juniper forward again. The canyon narrowed once more, then opened suddenly onto a steep drop. Cole spotted a small ledge below, sloping downward, and on that ledge, near a cluster of sharp rocks, he finally saw her. A young Apache girl, maybe no more than 14 or 15, stood pressed against the canyon wall. Her long, dark hair was tangled from running. Her clothes were dusty. She held a small branch in her shaking hands, trying to keep something at a distance. That something stood only a few feet away. A wolf, thin, alert, circling slowly, its yellow eyes fixed not on the branch but on the girl herself. Two more wolves paced behind it, ears flattened, their movements slow and calculating. Cole felt his breath catch for a moment. She was cornered with nowhere left to run. The drop behind her was too steep, and the wolves had closed in from the only escape route. He knew he had only seconds to act. The girl noticed him at the same time. Her eyes widened, not in relief, but in confusion. She didn't call out. She didn't move. She simply stared at him as if she couldn't quite believe he was real. Cole didn't shout instructions or try to talk to her. He knew any loud sound might startle the wolves into lunging. Instead, he clicked his tongue softly, the signal Juniper knew well. The mare responded immediately, gathering strength beneath him as he urged her down the rocky slope. He kept his movements slow at first so the wolves wouldn't panic. Then he raised his voice, not shouting, but loud enough to make his presence known. "Hey there!" he called firmly. The wolves' attention snapped toward him. The girl took a small, shaky breath, but she didn't lower her branch. Cole reached the bottom of the slope and urged Juniper forward again, now with more speed. Dust lifted behind them. His calm expression didn't change, but inside, his mind raced. He had no desire to harm the wolves if he could avoid it. They were only animals acting on instinct, but they were far too close to the girl, and he had no choice but to break their focus. He tapped his heels lightly against Juniper's sides. She surged forward. The sudden movement startled the wolves. One growled, not viciously, just as a warning to claim its ground. But Juniper was large, confident, and fast. Cole guided her between the girl and the wolves, cutting off their path. The wolves retreated a few steps, surprised by the sudden appearance of a horse and rider. Cole raised one arm, spreading himself wide in the saddle to look larger. He kept Juniper steady, circling slowly to block the wolves' view of the girl. The lead wolf took another step backward, then another. Wolves understood size, confidence, and energy. And Cole gave off a steady, firm presence, one that said clearly he would not back down. After a tense few seconds, the wolves finally turned. They moved away slowly at first, watching him, then disappeared into the shrubs, their soft paw steps fading into the distance. Cole let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He kept his eyes on the trail where the wolves had vanished, making sure they wouldn't return. Only after he was certain the danger had passed did he turn toward the girl. She was still pressed against the canyon wall, breathing fast but silent. Her branch, once held tightly in fear, now slipped from her hand and dropped to the ground. Cole softened his voice. "You hurt anywhere?" The girl didn't answer immediately. Her chest rose and fell quickly. She stared at him with a mixture of awe, relief, and uncertainty. He didn't move closer yet. He knew better than to rush her. Apache culture valued strength, pride, and caution around strangers. A sudden approach might frighten her more than help her. She finally spoke in a quiet voice. "You came. Looked like you needed help," he replied gently. She blinked slowly as if weighing his words. Her expression wasn't childish fear. It was thoughtful, searching. Cole noticed a small scrape on her arm and some tears in her clothing where branches had caught her. She had clearly been running hard. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated, then answered softly, "Nayeli." He nodded. "I'm Cole." Another small pause passed between them, one filled with surprise and caution on her side, patience on his. Then, with sudden sharpness, Nayeli's eyes shifted past Cole. She saw movement before he did. The wolves had returned, not close, not charging, but watching from a distance. Their bodies stayed low, ears flat. They were hungry enough to hope for another opportunity, but not foolish enough to challenge a horse twice. Cole wrapped the reins firmly around his hand. "All right," he said quietly. "We're not staying here." He guided Juniper closer to the girl and extended his hand to her. "Come on, you'll be safer riding with me." Nayeli looked at his hand, her brows drawn together. Trust was not something she gave easily, but she glanced back at the wolves, who had begun creeping closer again, and her jaw tightened. She took his hand. Cole pulled her gently onto Juniper's back, settling her in front of him. She was tense at first, her hands gripping the saddle horn, but when Juniper shifted beneath them with steady confidence, Nayeli's breathing slowed just a little. Cole spoke to the horse softly. "Let's get out of here, girl." Juniper obeyed instantly. They rode up the slope, away from the wolves, dust swirling around them as they climbed. The pack didn't follow. They stood for a few moments, then retreated into the deeper parts of the canyon. Once they reached level ground, Cole slowed the horse. The tension in the air eased. Nayeli looked up at him, her dark eyes focused, steady, and full of something he couldn't quite read. She spoke in a clear, firm voice, not afraid, not shaken, but certain. "You saved me." Cole nodded once. "Anyone would have." Nayeli shook her head. "No, not anyone." There was something strong in her tone, something that surprised him. Then she said the words that would change everything. "Now you're mine." Cole blinked, unsure he had heard her right. He opened his mouth to ask what she meant, but Nayeli looked forward again, her expression calm and serious, as if those words carried a meaning deeper than he understood. And in the fading light of the canyon, with the wolves gone and the dust settling around them, Cole realized his quiet journey across the land had shifted into something far more unexpected than he ever imagined. Cole guided Juniper along the narrow trail until the canyon walls grew shorter behind them. Only when the ground leveled out and the breeze felt safer did he loosen his grip on the reins. He didn't look back right away, but he listened carefully for any sound of wolves. There was nothing, only the quiet rustle of grass and the distant call of a bird. Still, he stayed alert. Danger often left slowly, not all at once. Nayeli sat in front of him, silent but steady. Her breathing had returned to normal, yet her shoulders remained stiff. Cole could feel the tension in her posture, like she was holding on to something important inside her. She didn't look frightened anymore, only serious, thoughtful, and strangely calm for someone who had just been surrounded by wolves. He didn't want to bother her, but her earlier words echoed in his mind like a question he couldn't answer. "Now you're mine." He had heard the phrase clearly. She hadn't whispered it. She had said it with certainty, as if it meant something important. But what exactly did she mean? Cole had worked near Apache lands before. He respected their traditions, but he didn't know all of them. The tribes had deep beliefs about bravery, life, and the idea of giving and receiving help. He wondered if she meant he owed her something, or maybe she thought she owed him something. But instead of assuming anything, he decided to ask. "Nayeli," he said gently. She didn't turn around right away, but her shoulders moved slightly, showing she was listening. "What you said back there," he continued. "What did you mean by it?" Nayeli turned her head slightly so she could see him. Her eyes were dark and calm, but they carried the weight of someone used to thinking deeply. "You saved my life," she said simply. "I'm glad I could," Cole replied softly. "But that doesn't mean—" "You don't understand," she said, cutting him off, but not in a rude way. Her tone was thoughtful, not angry. "Where I come from, saving a life is not a small thing. It makes a connection, a bond." Cole felt his heart slow for a moment. "A bond?" Nayeli nodded. "Yes, a strong one. It means our paths have crossed for a reason. It means you are part of my story now, and I am part of yours." Cole didn't quite know how to respond. He had traveled alone for most of his life. He didn't form bonds easily, not because he feared them, but because he didn't think anyone expected him to. He had always believed people were like seasons in his life. They came and went naturally. But here was this young girl telling him that something permanent had formed between them, something he had not planned and did not fully understand. He tried to keep his voice steady. "I didn't save you for any reward or promise. I just couldn't leave you there." "I know that," she said. "That's why it matters." She turned away again, looking toward the stretch of land ahead of them. Her back straightened a little, as if speaking those words had reminded her of something important from her own culture, something she held with pride. Cole guided Juniper across a field of soft grass. The sun was slipping lower now, painting the sky with gold and peach colors. Shadows stretched long across the land. It would be dark within a couple of hours. He needed to find a safe place to rest or reach the village Nayeli came from before nightfall. He cleared his throat. "Are you far from home?" Nayeli nodded. "A few miles, maybe more. I was gathering herbs with my cousin earlier. I walked farther than I should have. She didn't see the wolves. They came from behind the rocks." Cole's brows knit together. "Were you alone when they surrounded you?" "Yes." Nayeli's voice carried the memory of fear she had not shown earlier. "They moved quietly. I tried to climb, but the rocks were too high." Cole exhaled slowly. "I'm sorry you went through that, but you're safe now." Nayeli didn't respond for a moment. Then, softly, she said, "Because of you." They rode in silence for a while. The trail opened into a wide plain dotted with small bushes. The sky above them looked endless, stretching far into the horizon. Cole found comfort in the open space. It made it easier to breathe and think. Nayeli, however, seemed restless in her thoughts. She looked back at him again. "You do not believe my words, do you?" she asked. Cole blinked. "It's not that I don't believe you. I just don't know what they mean." Nayeli studied him carefully. "In my people's way, when a life is saved, it creates a path between the two people. The one who is saved must honor the one who saved them, not out of duty but out of respect. And the one who saved them is expected to accept that honor." Cole rubbed the back of his neck. "I'm not sure I deserve that." "You do," she said quietly but firmly. "You didn't hesitate. You didn't wait. You came for me even when you didn't know who I was." Cole felt a small warmth in his chest, though he didn't show it. He wasn't used to being thanked. Not like this. Most people he helped simply nodded and went on with their lives. But Nayeli saw more than that. She saw meaning in the moment, in the choice he made without thinking. "Nayeli," he said carefully, "I don't want to change your traditions. I respect them, I really do. But I didn't help you because of a bond. I helped because it was the right thing to do." "Exactly," she replied. "That is why the bond is real." Her voice held no doubt, no fear, only certainty. Cole didn't know how to argue with that, not without sounding ungrateful or dismissive of her beliefs, and the last thing he wanted was to disrespect her or her people. Juniper continued walking steadily across the plain, her hooves making a soft rhythm against the ground. The air grew cooler as the sun dipped lower. Cole could see the outline of distant trees ahead, forming the edge of a forest. Beyond that, he suspected, lay the Apache village. As they rode, Nayeli suddenly shifted, turning fully to face him. Her expression softened. "You think I meant something else?" she said quietly. Cole's breath caught for a moment. "I wasn't sure what you meant." She shook her head gently. "I did not mean you belonged to me, or that you owe me anything. That is not our way." He felt a slow relief settle in his chest, but he didn't speak yet. "What I meant," she continued, "is that your life and mine are now connected. You chose to step into danger for me. That choice has meaning. It is a thread that ties us together, no matter what happens next." Cole looked down at the reins in his hands. A thread, a connection, not ownership, not obligation, something deeper, something more human. "I understand," he said finally. Nayeli smiled, small, gentle but real. It was the first smile he had seen from her since the canyon, and it changed something between them, like a door quietly opening. They continued riding, the silence now comfortable rather than tense. After a long stretch of quiet, Cole felt confident enough to ask, "Will your family be worried?" Nayeli nodded. "Very. My father is a scout. He teaches our people how to read the land. He will notice I am late." "Then we'd better hurry," Cole replied. She looked at him again, studying his face carefully, almost as if memorizing it. "Thank you," she said softly, "not just for saving me, but for listening. Many people hear my words but do not listen." Cole felt something warm spread through him again. "You speak clearly. It's not hard to listen." Nayeli looked forward again, her posture finally relaxing. For the first time since meeting her, she looked peaceful, not because the danger had passed, but because she felt understood. As they approached the forest, the shadows deepened and the sky shifted to a soft purple. Cole could see the faint glow of small fires in the distance, warm lights flickering through the trees. The Apache village was close. Nayeli leaned slightly back, her voice low and steady. "When we reach my people," she said, "they will ask what happened. They will want to thank you, but I will tell them something more." "What's that?" Cole asked. "That you are part of my story now," she replied, "and I am part of yours." Cole didn't know how his life had changed so quickly, or what this connection would mean. But as they rode toward the village lights, with the night rising around them and the land growing quiet, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. A beginning. A new path he hadn't expected, and he didn't turn away from it. Cole and Nayeli entered the edge of the forest just as the sun dipped below the horizon. The last bit of daylight softened the trees in warm colors, making the forest look peaceful even though the shadows were growing longer. The air felt cooler here, filled with the smell of pine and earth. Fireflies began to appear between the branches, blinking like tiny stars floating close to the ground. It was quiet, but it wasn't an empty kind of quiet. It was the comforting kind, the kind that made a person feel safe. Still, Cole didn't allow himself to relax too much. He kept one hand on the reins, the other ready to steady Nayeli if she slipped. He had saved her from the wolves, yes, but danger sometimes returned when least expected. The wolves had followed them before. They could do it again. Juniper sensed something too. Her ears turned back every few minutes, listening for sounds Cole might not notice. Nayeli sat calmly, her back straight and her eyes focused forward. She didn't look frightened anymore. But there was a seriousness in her that made Cole wonder how many responsibilities she carried for someone her age. She didn't speak for a long while, and Cole let the silence stay. Sometimes silence gave people time to think, and he sensed she needed that. A soft breeze passed through the trees, carrying the sound of distant birds returning to their nests. That peaceful sound reminded Cole of the question he had wanted to ask earlier. "How did you get so far from your cousin?" he asked quietly, not wanting to disturb the calm of the forest. Nayeli took a small breath. "I was collecting herbs. Some plants grow only deeper in our land. My cousin went one way and I went another. We were supposed to meet again near a large oak tree, but the wolves found me first." Cole nodded slowly, imagining how frightened she must have been, even though she hid it well. "You were brave," he said. She shook her head. "I only tried to stay alive. That is not bravery." "It is," Cole replied gently. "Bravery isn't loud. It's doing what you can when you're scared." Nayeli didn't answer, but he saw her shoulders relax just a little, as if his words gave her something she didn't know she needed. The forest path grew narrower, winding between tall pines and thick bushes. The trees blocked some of the fading sunlight, but they also shielded Cole and Nayeli from the cold wind that swept across the open plains. The world here felt different, quieter, deeper, almost sacred. After a few minutes, Nayeli spoke again. "My father tells me that every person has a path," she said softly. "Sometimes you walk it alone. Sometimes another person walks beside you. Even if only for a short time." Cole smiled faintly. "Sounds wise?" Nayeli nodded. "He is." She paused, then added, "I think you are on my path now." Cole didn't respond right away. He understood her meaning better now. Her bond wasn't something forced or strange. It was simply her way of honoring the moment that had changed her life. But even understanding didn't make it easy for him. He had lived alone for so long that the thought of being connected to someone, even in a small way, felt new and unexpected. Still, he didn't reject her words. He respected them. The trail curved suddenly, leading to a small stream. The water shimmered in the evening light, and Juniper eagerly lowered her head to drink. Cole let her rest. They had been riding for a long time, and the horse deserved a moment to breathe. While Juniper drank, Cole glanced back the way they had come. The forest was quiet, and nothing moved. But he hadn't forgotten the wolves. Their hunger had been real, and animals could be persistent. He hoped they didn't follow this far, but he didn't trust hope alone. Nayeli slid off Juniper gently and knelt beside the stream to wash her scratched arm. She cupped her hands and let the cold water run over her skin. Cole watched her for a moment, noticing how carefully she moved, how aware she was of her surroundings, even while doing something simple. She wasn't careless, not even for a heartbeat. "You're strong," Cole said suddenly. Nayeli looked up, surprised. "Strong?" He nodded. "Most people would have panicked back there, but you didn't." She smiled a little. It wasn't a big smile, but it made her face softer. "My father teaches us to stay calm," she said. "He says fear can make a small problem become a bigger one." "Your father sounds like a good teacher." "He is," she replied. Then she added, "Maybe you would like him." Cole wasn't sure how to reply. He didn't know many fathers, not good ones anyway. "Maybe," he said quietly. Nayeli finished washing and stood. "We must keep moving. The village is not far, but we should reach it before the sky becomes dark." Cole agreed. He helped her back onto the horse, then mounted behind her. Juniper started walking again, steady and sure. As they traveled deeper into the forest, the sounds changed. The wind grew softer. The trees swayed lightly, almost as if welcoming them. Cole felt the quiet magic of the land. He didn't know the stories of the Apache people, but he could feel something special in this place, something alive and strong. Nayeli spoke softly, almost whispering. "Do you think the wolves will follow us again?" Cole thought about it. "They might," he admitted honestly, "but not if they think we're too far into the forest. They don't like coming close to villages. Too many people, too many lights. Nayeli nodded. Then we should be safe. Cole hoped so. But part of him kept listening, kept watching. His instincts were sharp after years of traveling. Danger never fully went away until the moment was completely over. Birds fluttered overhead, and a rabbit darted across the path. Juniper didn't react. She was used to sudden movement. But Cole's eyes shifted automatically, checking the shadows. Everything seemed calm. Nayeli's voice broke the silence. "You do not talk much," she said. Cole chuckled lightly. "Not used to having someone to talk to." "Then I will talk," she said with a small grin. Her sudden sparks of humor surprised him. She had been frightened earlier, serious afterward, thoughtful during their ride, and now she was letting herself smile. It showed him she trusted him, even if only a little. She began telling him small things, about the herbs she collected, about a little girl in her village who liked to braid everyone's hair, about the stories elders told during the winter months. Her voice was warm, gentle, and filled with pride for her people. Cole listened closely. He didn't interrupt, didn't rush her. Her words made the forest feel alive, as if every tree held a memory and every stone carried a story. After a while, Cole added quietly, "It sounds like you have a good life here." Nayeli nodded. "I do. I am thankful." Then she glanced back at him. "But today, my path joined yours, and now, I think I will remember you for a long time." Cole's chest tightened a little, not in fear, but in something he couldn't quite name. Something warm, something quiet. He didn't reply. He didn't need to. Nayeli understood silence as well as words. Not long after, Juniper's ears lifted. She quickened her pace without being asked. Cole felt her body shift beneath him. "What is it, girl?" he whispered. Nayeli looked around. "Something is near?" "Maybe," Cole replied carefully. Then, through the trees, they heard it. Soft rustling, slow steps, the faint crunch of leaves. Not loud, not close, but steady. Wolves. They had followed after all. Nayeli tensed. But Cole placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "It's all right. We're close to your village. They won't follow much longer." But he wasn't completely sure. He kept Juniper moving at a careful but faster pace. The forest around them thickened, and the sounds of footsteps grew softer, then faded entirely. It seemed the wolves had stopped following, unwilling to enter a place that wasn't their own. Finally, through the trees, the faint glow of firelight appeared. Small, warm, steady. The first sign of the Apache village. Nayeli let out a small breath of relief. "We are home." Cole nodded, though he felt something unexpected, something that surprised him. A small part of him was relieved. Another part didn't want the journey to end. Cole and Nayeli reached the Apache settlement just as the first light of morning touched the tops of the distant hills. The soft glow spread slowly, giving the world a quiet golden color before the sun itself appeared. Cole felt tired from the long night, but he stayed alert. He knew that stepping into someone else's land was never simple, and he did not want to cause any worry or misunderstanding. Nayeli, on the other hand, seemed calm. Even after everything they had faced, she walked forward with the same steady confidence she had shown from the moment he met her. The settlement slowly came to life as people noticed someone approaching. A few children peeked out from between the huts, curious but cautious. Some adults stepped forward, and soon several members of the community gathered. Their expressions mixed with concern and surprise at seeing Nayeli returning with an unfamiliar cowboy. Cole gently stopped his horse and waited for her to speak first. He wanted to be respectful and careful. Nayeli's father appeared moments later. He was a tall man with a steady, thoughtful presence. When he saw his daughter, relief flashed across his face so quickly that Cole nearly missed it. but the man quickly returned to a serious, controlled expression as he approached them. Nayeli stepped forward and spoke to him softly in her own language. Cole did not understand the words, but he paid close attention to the tone, gentle, reassuring, and respectful. Nayeli's father then turned to Cole. For a moment, the two men looked at each other in silence. Cole felt the weight of the moment. He did not know how he would be received. He had only wanted to help Nayeli, but he understood that helping someone from another community could sometimes bring questions or complications. Still, he kept his posture calm and honest. He wanted the man to see that he meant no harm. After a long pause, Nayeli's father gave Cole a slow nod of thanks. It was simple, but meaningful. Cole felt a breath of relief move through him. He had done the right thing, and it had been understood. Nayeli then explained to her people what had happened, how she had gotten separated, how she had been in danger, and how Cole had stepped in to help her without hesitation. Some people placed their hands over their hearts at her words, showing gratitude. Others nodded quietly. A few looked at Cole with curiosity, wanting to understand what kind of man would risk himself for a stranger. After she finished, Nayeli stepped beside Cole. She spoke clearly and calmly. She told them about the old Apache belief that when someone saves another's life, a special connection forms between them, one that is not taken lightly. The people listened carefully, for they knew the meaning of such words. Cole felt their eyes turn toward him, not in judgment, but in thoughtful study. Nayeli's father placed a hand on her shoulder and then faced Cole again. In a calm voice, he told Cole that he respected what he had done, and he would not hold him to any promise or custom that Cole did not understand. He wanted Cole to walk away without feeling bound or trapped by anything unfamiliar. Cole appreciated the man's fairness. He nodded and said he had never expected anything in return. He had simply wanted to make sure Nayeli was safe. But before he could finish speaking, Nayeli stepped forward again. She looked up at her father and then back at Cole, her expression steady but warm. She repeated the words she had spoken the night before, but this time her voice was softer, almost filled with new meaning. "Now you're mine." Cole paused. The words surprised him again, but not in the same way as before. This time he could hear the deeper meaning beneath them. She did not say it like a command, nor like a claim of ownership. The tone was gentle, almost sincere. It spoke not of force, but of connection, something built from shared danger, trust, and understanding. Nayeli's father watched them both, and after a long moment, he smiled for the first time. It was small, but it carried warmth. He nodded, as if recognizing something meaningful forming between the two. He spoke quietly to his daughter, and she answered with calm confidence. Cole did not know their words, but he could feel the peaceful shift in the air. Some members of the community invited Cole to sit and rest. They brought water, warm food, and soft blankets. Cole accepted with gratitude. He had not realized how exhausted he truly was until he finally sat down. Nayeli remained nearby, speaking with people who wanted to hear her story. Every now and then she glanced back at Cole to make sure he was comfortable. Each time she gave a small smile that made him feel unexpectedly welcome. After he rested, Cole used simple gestures to ask if he could repair his horse's tack and check on the animal's injuries from the night before. Several young men offered to help him, showing him where he could work. Cole appreciated their kindness. He was used to working alone, but he respected the way Nayeli's community supported one another. Nayeli eventually walked over to him. She sat beside him while he checked his horse. For a moment she did not speak, simply watching him with a thoughtful expression. Cole felt strangely at ease with her silence. It was the calm kind of quiet that comes from trust, not distance. After a long moment, she finally said, "You helped me without asking why. You helped because you felt it was right." Her voice was soft but steady. "That is why I said those words. Cole looked at her with gentle confusion. "I still don't fully understand the meaning," he admitted. Nayeli smiled. "It means your spirit and mine crossed paths in a way that matters. It means that, from now on, the story of your life and the story of mine will always touch each other." She paused, letting the words settle. "You are not tied to me, but you are connected to me." Cole let the explanation sink in. He felt the truth of her words in a way that didn't need further explanation. Sometimes life brought people together in unexpected ways, ways that could not be predicted, avoided, or fully explained. But the connection was real. As the day grew brighter, Cole realized he would need to continue his journey soon. He had no home to return to, but he had work waiting in another town. He stood, tightened the saddle on his horse, and prepared to leave. Nayeli walked with him to the edge of the settlement. She held out a small woven bracelet she had made earlier that morning. It was simple, made of thin threads in soft colors. She placed it in his hand and said it was a reminder of the day their paths crossed. Cole thanked her with genuine warmth. He placed the bracelet in his pocket, knowing he would keep it safe. Before he mounted his horse, he turned to her. "I'll remember everything that happened," he said quietly. Nayeli looked into his eyes and replied, "So will I." He rode away slowly, watching the settlement grow smaller behind him. What surprised him most was the light feeling in his chest. He had always been a lone rider, drifting from place to place with no ties. But now, for the first time in a long while, he felt that someone in the world truly remembered him. Far behind him, Nayeli stood watching until he disappeared over the hill. She touched the place on her wrist where a matching bracelet rested, a sign that the bond they had formed was not a burden, but a gift. And as Cole continued his journey, he realized that even though he rode on alone, he no longer felt alone. Their connection, formed in a moment of danger but strengthened by trust, would stay with him wherever he went.